Welcome into 11 Personnel. We are live for the first week of Kentucky football spring practice has concluded, and we're live thanks to our friends at Monticello Bank. That's right, 128 years of service. Monticello Bank, they're proud to say they go wherever the Wildcats and their fans go. It means whether you're following us here on 11 Personnel or you're going down to Nashville for the SEC tournament, the Go NBC mobile app lets you bank at home, on the road. If you need to come see us, our convenient branch locations are right around the corner, all across the Commonwealth. Our "Where People Matter" motto means competitive loans, competitive deposit rates, and a wide variety of customer-focused financial services, which makes the numbers side of your life a little bit easier. Find us on the web, nbcbank.com, Monticello Bank, where people matter, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Monticello Bank, proud sponsors of 11 Personnel, where we're proud to share everything that we learned about the first week of spring practice. Like it's a little bit different than our last conversations where it's all NFL, NFL. Now it's all spring practice, and it's a lot of new guys, for the lack of a better term, because that's what we've kind of it's just been. All right, here's some little changes. Let's find out about the new guys on campus, new guys that are coming back, and Liam Cohen. It made for a pretty exciting week where we get 3 days of light practices, helmets only, shells, helmets and shoulder pads on Thursday. They've got a spring break, so we got a nice little intro where they put a lot on us for us to kind of digest over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think they're already a little sick of answering about the transfers just a weekend. Got some of that today. Uh, just wanted to be asked about something else. But yeah, a weekend, Nick, I think I feel good about who they're going to go after in the transfer portal in May. Like, I think I've learned that in a week.
That's
Like,
pretty quick.
like kicker, obviously.
Yeah,
That didn't
man.
sound very promising.
No,
Uh,
no, it did not.
you, like from our job and perspective, I don't know that a lot of people care about it, but anybody that watches these kind of interviews, like Cohen's a lot more open. He gives a lot more kind of succinct answers, and then Brad White is very, if you can get him going, and he gives you a lot of more in detail type stuff, which is nice, I think, for the fans and for us. So having him back was he was just different than Rich in that regard. In a lot of ways, they're different, but that
Yeah.
one specifically for us.
Well, and
Um,
Rich too. It took a while to figure out if he was just going to be a sunshine pumper or be like actually tell you what
yeah,
was the truth.
about
Where
week 5, we realized, well, we can't take anything he says. Like, you can't do really
seriously,
anything with it.
yeah,
Not saying that's a bad thing or whatever. That's just how he operated. I think a couple things here with Cohen. Number one, like he's pretty open about answering questions. He walked through the whole entire offensive line and then said, "There's a battle at right tackle." You know, they. I
yeah,
mean, they
yeah,
they pretty much know who 4 of their 5 starters are. It sounds like they want more options at right tackle. But we'll see how this thing's progressed. I think it's really disappointing Nick Hall's not out there.
yeah, yeah. That,
Redshirt freshman.
yeah.
On 3 was real big on him, Nick. He was in the All-American game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Positional size, athleticism. I think he's got a really high pass pro potential down the road. That thought he might be able to make a move here. That stinks. So number one, like right tackle, they need a right tackle.
Yeah, yeah,
Number 2, we talked about kicker, and then Brad White today got asked about linebacker depth, and he pretty much says that's a concern. That's a big question mark. So to me, those are like when we look in May when that portal opens, and you're starting to see guys pop up in the portal right now. That's the positions to watch. Right tackle, off-ball linebacker that can be a depth piece, and then finding a kicker. And then another thing we got today, Nick, that we never got last year, and it's something I've talked about before. Like when I go to these spring practices, or if we go to and talk to people and get to know some stuff, I want to hear more than just, oh, well, the offense is complicated, where it's a hard system. Like that showed up repeatedly. And then we saw them play. It was sloppy. They were throwing picks. It just looked like crap. And then it was all like, we're just learning. Brad White today said the offense got after us and bloodied our nose a little bit
yeah.
there in a period. That is something that we just didn't hear last year. And I think that is a very good thing. It's in that last period, I thought the offense came out fired up and kind of punched the guys in the nose. So to me, that
Yeah.
says offense won that last team period. That's a very good sign in my opinion.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, bloody their nose indicates
Well, offensive line, right? Something's
exactly.
going on, right? When
Yeah.
without tight ends, like you know,
Yes.
without the ultimate ass kicker, number 84 in there, without Caddis wrecking shop. So that's really good to hear.
I love that even when he's not around, like it's got to find the time to plug. I mean,
Josh,
it's almost
he's
like
my
Josh Caddis sponsors this podcast, right?
Josh Caddis is Superman.
But to your point, though, Caddis is out, Dingle is out, Brendan Bates, all three out. Those are your top three tight ends. They're out this
Yeah,
spring. So Isaiah Cummings, who virtually vanished from the lineup, he's having to take on a ton of reps. And then Kamari Anderson, who was playing in the Under Armour All-American game, 2 months ago, just showed up on campus. Those guys are getting a ton of reps, which I think is very valuable for Anderson. Not necessarily this fall, Luckett. This is valuable for him. Like it's
right.
it's kind of like the Jordan Dingle redshirt freshman year, right? Where a lot of the learning curve stuff is out of the way. It's not to say that he can't make an impact, but he's just so far down. He feels like the next guy up once Bates leaves. So um, those are valuable, but it does kind of stink that you don't get to do a lot of those 12 personnel looks, right? So instead, what it's going to be is it's going to give DeKel Crowdis, right? It's going to give some of those other receivers a lot more opportunities to get reps because you're going to be working with lighter personnel packages. So from that aspect, that's kind of the way they're able to figure out who's who. Um, Even though figuring out wide receiver 4 isn't as important as that offensive line figuring it out, which the other part of Cohen's detailed talk, I like how detailed in how they approach fixing the offensive line because it like the first thing he did was like, all right, we stunk at twists and movement and stuff. We're
Get it
that's
fixed. Yeah,
we're gonna face it on day one. I like that approach and how he's going about making sure that they're all on the same page this fall.
yeah. Shameless KSR Plus plug. Wrote about Isaiah Cummings on Tuesday. Dug into some numbers, some tape. Really kind of went into detail about how I think Kentucky wants to use him, how he'll be used, what he's done compared to what Dingle's done. I think Dingle has better statistical numbers, you will see, and I think he has more of a kind of tight end frame. So for Cummings, it's going to be, you need depth, but getting that, locking in a spot right now, like it's a huge thing spring for him, and just getting a lot of reps. You get, I think, big thing this spring, Nick, is one. It's about finding your rotation. I think they know they're four. I think they're going to leave the spring knowing 4 of the 5 positions, and then maybe a transfer being their 5th. But they're going to know whether, I think it's going to be Eli or Jagger at center / right guard, and they already know the left side. So it's fixing that and just building continuity. Continuity was like a big word, cohesion, working together. And I think a lot of that, they just want to bank reps with this group and figure out the stuff they struggled with last year, which was a lot of twists, post snap movement, and just picking stuff up on the fly. But I think a lot of that is just going to be fixed organically.
Yes.
Like having Horsey at left guard, he's going to know what to do. Cox at left tackle, on tape he handled twists and stuff like that well. If you play Eli Cox again at right guard, I think he's going to be fine there. And it's going to be Jagger just learning how to, snap, move, and what you have to in the calls at center, what you all have to do there. So for that, I think a lot of that stuff is just, I think to me, a lot of it's going to be getting fixed organically. The real important part is just working together and knowing how each other work and being coached by the same guy for the second year in the system. I think should help with that too.
That'll help. And then we hadn't really hit it over the head a ton yet, but I know is going to be a big part of the second part of the spring practice is talking to these big guys about the communication. And that was an issue last year. I think there were guys like it. Those play calls were so long. I think there were some guys that got down a stance and didn't really know who they were supposed to block. Like that for lack of a better term, like I think that was a lot of the problem last year is just not knowing what to do. And Cohen is not going to pile on all of this complexities just to be the smart guy, right? Like it's going to be fairly simple to where everybody knows their job when they step up to the line of scrimmage, and that's I mean, it sounds so basic, and that's kind of what he was talking about with Devin Leary going under center, but until you do it, and until it is the way it is, like, that it just has to be a part of it, and I don't think that was a part of their offense last year. I don't think everybody knew what they were supposed to do on every given play.
Communication was just a big word. I think that's top down,
Yeah.
from head coach to coordinator to position coach to player.
Mhm.
I think that was maybe a thing they struggled with a little bit last year.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think that definitely, and I just think the familiarity right here with Cohen, like he knows personnel knows him, the coaches are familiar with him. Even Yinzer, they're from like the same tree. Woodward and him are like, they probably know what each other's going to say out there before they say it. And then Bulware's really the brand new one. Like he's the one probably trying to, play catch up a little bit. And so I think, I mean, that's really the storyline of the spring is just, Liam Cohen's return and what it does. And I just can't stress enough, like this report today after day 3, like Kentucky's going to be pretty good on defense, Nick. Like you look at this front
Yeah.
7 they have. I mean, they've got NFL Deion Walker, J.J. Weaver, Trevin Wallace. All 3 of them dudes playing in the NFL.
Yep.
Right?
Mhm.
And they're all going to have a great chance to be a top 100 pick.
Which is very different than last year's defense, where it was not it was more of the sum of the parts, right? The collective.
We heard from White that J.J. Weaver absolutely wrecked shop in a drill. Just absolutely took it over and dominated. We know what Deion Walker can do. Trevin Wallace, we've seen his playmaking flash in smaller sample sizes. We want to see it over a larger picture. But we know what they can do, and that the fact that the offense kind of gave it to them a little bit. Like to me, and we know what they have safety too, right? I mean, their safety group is really good. I just think like hearing little stuff like that is really what I wanted to hear this spring. That they're having success because they didn't have we didn't hear that they had that last year, and a lot of times it was always hidden behind it's new scheme, came in late, hard to learn, it's very complicated. To hear stuff like that is, I think, just very promising because they have talent. They have skill talent. They have talent that has played and made plays in this league. So put it all together, they should be able to score some points. If you're able to score points and you team it up with another good defense, the schedule's tougher this year, but there's no reason why this team can't really threaten, I think, for 9 wins in the regular season. Again.
There was there were some funny because the thing that is nice about spring is when you do talk to these guys, they aren't on high alert. They aren't on, oh God, we can't trash talk. They've let their guard down because they don't have to worry about providing bulletin board material, right? So when Dane was asked about the differences between catching a pass from Will and Leary, so funny, like because you can just tell that some of those receivers last year, I bet it was just hard on him. Like because Levis was just putting it in there 100 miles an hour. He's like, Devin, he puts it in there nice and soft. It's really easy to catch. I'm like, oh man, I bet they're having fun figuring out this guy. And the other part too is, Leary, he likes chucking it deep. He loves a go ball.
Yeah.
And Dane said he's going to sling that thing till we can't run no more. So this is a time where they can really have fun. They can kind of figure out the little nuances to each other's game. And we were talking about how since there's no spring game because they're redoing the turf, which if you haven't seen, it's very bizarre. UK tweeted out a picture of Kroger Field without any turf, and it looks like a dust bowl underneath it.
Just looked like the factory to me.
Yeah,
I thought it was just we're just over Eastern Michigan.
It's this very bizarre look
that game.
without the turf down on the field. But so we're getting these highlights, right? We're getting these highlights. They mic'd up Cohen for spring practice number 2, and the first sort of big highlight that we got is Leary going deep on an over route to Barryon Brown with Cohen narrating it, and also Brown wearing number 7, which just, our eyes are still getting adjusted to some of these number changes. The new guys, Ray Davis wearing number 1 in the backfield. So I found it to be like, if you were going to place odds on first big highlight revealed from spring practice, Leary to Brown was -110 with
Oh yeah,
like Leary to Key maybe +100, and
clubhouse favorite.
then yeah. But I mean that was going to be it. Um, did you see any of the kicking highlights?
No.
Yeah,
It was interesting. You're talking about just the talent at receiver. We talked to Jansen Dunn today. He came from Ohio State. I don't think I have to tell you all what Ohio State's had at receiver the last few years.
they got some guys.
Now, he was very like I did know that like Dunn was very careful in how he answered this question, in my opinion. But he was like, they are in like the same caliber as those guys. I'm going. It's not like a. He said, I believe he said they're in the same caliber. It made it sound like it's not like those guys can play. It's not a drop off at all. And I think that those are strong words.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because those guys at Ohio State. I mean, look, Garrett Wilson, Olave,
Yep.
JSN,
Jackson
just here.
Yeah. Marvin Harrison. Is Marvin Harrison back?
Harrison Jr. Yeah.
Or is he?
That might be a Heisman future.
Yeah. I mean, God, I can't believe that guy's
he almost
back.
beat Georgia by himself, him and Stroud. I mean, they literally almost beat them. If he doesn't get hurt, they probably win that game.
Yeah. And Kentucky's receivers are in the same breath, right? I mean, I don't think he's trying to say that they're beating him. But
that just gets to the team, the personnel. We heard Cohen talk about that. This is it's different. The personnel is different on offense. We're different this year, but we want to be better. And one thing he learned from he thinks he learned from the Rams thing last year is like you just got to be able to adjust on the fly and do what you can. Do the best you can to make your personnel fit. Like the Rams last year, they couldn't run the ball at all. Their offensive line had all kinds of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Stunk. Everything McVay does typically is tied to the run game, so they had to figure out a drop-back passing game. Well, then that was kind of tough to have a drop-back passing game because Stafford got hurt and your top two receivers are out. So you can't drop back and pass. You can't run. So it's just like, how do we get creative and figure something out on the fly? And I think for Kentucky this year, and we've talked about it, the strengths are receiver, tight end, quarterback.
Yep.
You got to have to throw the football, and like you got to have to build the offense around that. And what does that look like, and how do they kind of balance that out? Because we know Mark Stoops wants to run the football. Like I'm just fascinated to see what this offense looks like because I think it's going to have to look different. I think like we're gonna see some like modern RPO stuff. I think just because one, that's what Devin Leary's used to and comfortable with. Two, that's probably going to be the easiest way to kind of implement your strengths, and then maybe it's more spread formations and running out spread formations to lighten the box to give your O-line and your back some room to operate. But then again, you also need to use some 12 and 13 personnel because you got tight ends, right?
Right.
So I'm just fascinated to see what the offense looks like, and really from a play percentage distribution, like run versus pass. They've been very run heavy in the past. Even last year, they leaned run heavy, even though they passed it more from a percentage standpoint when Levis was in there than they have more in the past. But there's no getting around that. Like this year, they're going to have to throw the ball. And so just seeing what that looks like and how they manage it from a game control standpoint is something I think it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be even different, I think, for Mark Stoops, how he manages games. You're going to have to be more willing, I think, to let them just sling it a little bit. And with that is going to come some 3 and outs. Maybe you're not winning time of possession as much. But if you're hitting the doubles, the triples, and the home runs in the big play department, it's going to make up for it. And so I just think how it looks on offense is just going to be different this year.
Yeah, and to go to the running game, we actually got a couple questions for those folks who are watching along with us on the KSR YouTube page. If you haven't subscribed yet, I mean, come on. It's just a click. You don't have to do anything else. You just click subscribe. You do it. It makes your life better. And whenever we go live between Luck and I, or whether it's the basketball guys after the games this week at the SEC tournament in Nashville, you'll get updates if you're subscribed to the KSR YouTube page. And Brad, he has a hot take feeling that Ramon Jefferson will be the most impressive runner. And we'll get some surprise production from Wilcox. But Kentucky Durbin has, I think, even a hotter take that thinking that Ray Davis will get 1,500 rushing yards this year. I think both, there's definitely a middle ground because one, Ray Davis isn't going to carry the ball enough times to get 1,500 yards. Two, has anybody ran for 1,500 yards since since Mark Stoops has been here? No.
Yeah.
I don't
The thing
like.
about running for 1,500, Nick, either you have to get a workload like Chase Brown, Blake
Yep.
Corum, Mo Ibrahim got last year, where they're getting 28, 29 tops a game. One, this is going to be a committee. Like,
Yes.
he's not going to get, even when they've had C-Rod, he wasn't getting that many
He was getting
swings.
20, maybe.
Yeah, he wasn't getting that
yeah.
many swings at the plate. You know,
Right.
even more. I think he jumped up to about 22, 23 this year. But he wouldn't get the swings at the plate. I just don't think Ray Davis is going to get the swings at the plate. He had a high workload, I think 21, 22 last year, and he ended up, right at like 1,100-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So that just I don't see that happening. The thing with just the running game is, can you have a good success rate where you're playing ahead of the chains? If you're able to spread defenses out, can you crease them? Can you create big plays?
Yes.
And three,
yes.
when you have to run it, can you run it? 4-minute offense, you're up by 10, 7 minutes left, you want to milk some clock. Can you run the football?
See,
that is the real 3 check marks I'm looking for. Can you be efficient? When you spread teams out, can you crease them for a big play? And can you run it when you need to run it?
And here's the thing, Luckett, for each one of those categories, I feel like you have potential guys at those 3 spots, right? Because when you need to run it, you should just lean on Ray Davis to be the big physical guy that's going to get hard yards. But from a creasing standpoint, that is where Jefferson potentially has some opportunity, right? McClain is getting all those reps now.
The rookie coming in too.
Yeah, and yeah, so running back is the most, and that's another part too, like it where even in spring, you don't like, as Cohen put it, he didn't know how good Chris was because he wasn't a great practice player. Even because in practice, you're just butting up, right? Like nobody's tackling guys to the ground, right? And so for some of these guys, that's their greatest strength is to be able to break tackles. Figuring out what that's going to look like before the season starts is going to be a challenge. And to go back to what we were talking about defense, Brad White said the same thing about the cornerbacks today, where that competition is probably going to go right up until the first game, because Dunn I think has a little bit more ground to keep up as far as learning the position, but he might have some more athleticism upside, whereas Hardaway's a bigger guy. So it's just figuring out the best fits for some of these. You just can't figure out in practice, and you shouldn't figure out in practice because you shouldn't be tackling on the ground. And that was Freddie's article that I enjoy. Our guy Freddie, I love that he's just like really steering into the has-beens market. Luckett. He's just like, you know what? I'm going to tell it how it was back in my day, and it's fun because it also makes it feel like he's 100 years old. Because, I mean, I know I felt like they just started. We were the first generation to start phasing out full contact at all time, but that feels like such an archaic thing, like not tackling 4 days a week. Like that tackling 4 days a week was just a way of life back in the day, and now that just feels like you're in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Those goal line periods, those things sucked. I know you were a part of them too, where you just like.
Hated goal line.
Get in the dirt. we're not stopping until you take out his legs. It's just like, God, imagine that in 2023.
Yeah, it's just a pile of humanity. Like we would have been better off just throwing a bunch of dummies down there and then just having quarterback and linebacker try to run through it. But yeah, I mean, the sport's just different. I mean, it's just different.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, even in NFL, they're not. They talk about this all the time in the NFL. Like they made the rule changes where you can't really hit during, fall camp, and then like the first 3 weeks of the season, it's all like blocking and tackling is an issue. Like the offensive line, it's like the offensive lines are going to struggle in the first 3 weeks of the season. Just get ready for it, and getting ball carries on the ground could be a problem because you just don't have any practice at it, and so that's just the game now. I mean, adapt or die,
Yeah.
You gotta adapt. But yeah, I mean, it's totally different. I do think he made a good point. Just the spring practice, it's hard when you're not playing anybody, right?
Yeah, right,
Like
right.
the first week is probably fun. You get out here. Like
Mhm.
Kentucky players are going on spring break, right? Like
Yeah.
they get to play football for 3 days, and they get to go on spring break, and then they have to come back after a week off and practice. Like that's gonna be hell when they
That's
come
gonna
back.
suck. Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
and then after that, it's just like you're just ready to get it over with. The last, I would
Mhm.
imagine, 5, 6, 7 practices are just like, yeah, let's get this done with so we can.
Which I'm pretty sure not last year because they had a spring, but I'm pretty sure Stoops just doesn't even use all 15 practices anymore. Because I've even noticed on the schedule this year, there's a Tuesday after a Saturday.
Yeah,
I'm
he
like,
probably wants one. You probably want 1.5 like good scrimmages.
but like some of those extra ones feels like that's just like let's just do some good 7-on-7 work and get out of here. Um, whereas I thought what Freddie had in mind, instead of doing 15 practices over 5 weeks or something, you do a week here, a week there, because a lot of this stuff is just keeping your body guessing, right? Um, Doing a whole
Yeah,
month of just January morning workouts is fun at first, and then it turns into a grind. Well, maybe you do your January, then you have a 3-day mini camp, um, take a break, and then you do another month of strength training, and then you have your week of practice followed by like a scrimmage for the public, and then in June you do another week because I don't know
I,
about you, but
I
there's
think,
stuff that they forget
yeah,
between day one and the start of fall camp.
back in the day, a lot of it was. I think it was more of just a body check. Like, you want to make sure that Mike, middle linebacker, is not hitting the keg too hard. At campus,
Yeah. Right,
because
right.
it wasn't like it is now, where everybody's in the facility and you have this nice weight room. You had a strength coach watching you all the time.
Right, right, right.
I mean, I don't know. You would have to ask Freddie this, but a lot of it was probably just like get in the weight room and work out. Make
Discipline
sure you're
sort
staying
of
in
deals.
shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then if you showed up at spring ball and you were totally out of shape, they would just run you until you were in shape.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so a lot of it was just probably just body check, just making sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Where now it's a little different. They're checking on you nonstop.
Well, speaking of checking, you should open a checking account with Monticello Bank, nbcbank.com. They've got locations near you, which we'll probably go to one here in about 2 weeks because we're gonna get to go in and see some practice. We'll be doing a show live at one of the Monticello Bank locations, but got to get through conference tournament selection Sunday. The madness is taking over elsewhere. We still are talking a little bit of ball. I like one of the questions we also got from the YouTube channel, asking if there could be a new logo maybe at the middle of the turf at midfield, and another person wondered if there was any scuttlebutt or return to natural grass. But here's the thing, like it about natural grass, that feels like if it would happen, it would be these things are good for 7 to 10 years. It would be the next rotation because
Yeah.
there's some momentum at the professional level about getting rid of it. But right now,
Yeah, but the Super Bowl might have ruined that, because if you just had,
yeah, that's true. That's
if
true.
you had had Forster, you wouldn't have had that issue. The number one thing, Nick, is just like they can get in there and practice on it, and they're not going to ruin it.
Exactly. And
So they
and
can
that's
use it for when they have their scrimmage and they want a game type setting, right, with the
yep.
chains, with referees, with the clock, sidelines. You have
Hmm.
to practice the sidelines, what you're doing, how you're doing your special teams alert, how you're huddling up.
Operational stuff. Yes.
Right. You can do all that in the stadium, but if you have grass there, you got to be careful because you don't want to ruin it.
Yes.
You have to stay off it a lot. And
Hmm.
so I think that's the number one reason why. Not only them, I think high schools have gone to it for that reason, just because multi-purpose, you can use it for so many things. And if Kentucky wants to have a concert in there,
Yep.
like Chris Stapleton or whoever,
Well,
they want to use it for whatever, people can go out there and use it, and you don't have to worry about it getting torn up.
same thing with state championship games. They're
Right,
hosting
and you can
six
host stuff
games.
right. That's what I
Yeah.
meant by multi-purpose venue. You can
Yeah.
graduation. I don't know if they do graduation outside, but if they want to do an outside May
Hmm.
graduation, they could do it outside, and they don't have to worry about just tearing up the field. And so that's why I just think it's here to stay. We'll see if this push back from knee injuries, if that comes of anything. They have real grass over there at Joe Craft. They practice on real grass every day.
Yeah.
But the inside the stadium, it's very convenient, because they can get in there and practice whenever they want to. Like if Devin Leary wants to take guys out to throw, they can go throw on the stadium, like
Mm-hmm.
whenever they want to, and so from that aspect, I think that's the big
Yeah.
attraction with it. But I get why people want like real grass. I mean, real grass looks better,
You
all of
feel
that.
faster on it.
But I think people forget how worn down that stadium grass got in November here.
Yeah. And
I
and
mean,
that was the big thing is Kentucky had notoriously the slickest field in the
yeah,
SEC.
because it's
Um,
not, you're not just in Georgia or Florida or some of these other places
hmm
where it's going to last better because of the
Yeah.
weather. I mean,
Yeah.
it got run down towards the end of the season.
Yeah. And so high school started implementing it slowly but surely. Did you ever get to play on the St. X turf, or were you the last Manual Stadium one?
That was a year after.
See, I had to play. Manual Stadium was technically my home field. We played more games at Southern because the Manual Stadium. It rained every Friday night, and that
Yeah.
thing got so chewed up. So
Yeah,
it makes it
my
from
senior year it rained like every Friday.
yeah.
And like the field at Manual Stadium was so bad, we had to take like pictures with parents on senior day
hmm
on like the track around the stadium on like the concrete. They wouldn't even let us out. I mean, it was that bad. And then like for the playoffs that year, we just rented out Cardinal Stadium because we couldn't
Yeah,
even play at Manual. That's how bad it was. So,
right.
um,
And that turf too. Like I remember getting to go to a JV game at South Oldham and just being like, "Man, this is awesome! I can cut." It was raining and
yeah, I think
I
the
could
only
cut
time we
without
really
eating
played
it.
on it was we played Highlands in the Bengal Stadium my senior year, and then we obviously had the games at Cardinal Stadium. That's the only one I can remember off the top of my head that was turf. When
Those are
I
fun
played
though.
back in my
You know,
day.
back in the old day. Now they got it all over the place, and that was us talking turf. There's one player we do need. We'd be remiss if we did not discuss on this week's edition of 11 Personnel. Probably the biggest surprise early on, a guy that we expected. I expected nothing. Like this was going to be a gravy get in the transfer portal. It was their latest transfer portal edition, and Mark Stoops comes to the podium and he's like, "Man, that Keyshawn Silver guy looks good," and I didn't. There was a world where even like I could see young Nick Roush, who's just overly optimistic, sunshine pumping, just coming in and being like, Justin Rogers, who needs him? Keyshawn Silver was a higher ranked recruit anyway. But that's not how it always works, right? Rogers had more proven production, and on top of it all, Silver there were plenty of red flags in his recruitment. He was a highly touted prospect, but there were reasons to be concerned. And he shows up first week of practice, and Mark Stoops oozing compliments for the new guy, which is just very rare. But in other instances where we did actually see it, it was for the guy that he could potentially be lining up next to in Deion Walker. Because here's the thing: it matters to have that sort of juice, right? Like you have to have that explosiveness. But some of this stuff is just God given what you were born with, right? Do you have the measurables to stack up down in there? And so far, it looks like he has the stuff that he can play alongside Deion Walker, and that Kentucky can be deep at that nose guard position where uh, Jamarius Dinkins really showed some flashes last year. Josiah Hayes has some of that potential, right? He's got that size as well. But Silver can give you he has the highest ceiling of them all. And to know that he at least showed up and looked the part, because that was a concern, was his weight, right? He showed up, looked the part, and um, yeah, it's certainly a long road ahead, right? Like because you got to put all the pads on and everything. But I was very encouraged that Silver can be the plug and play disruptor that we saw what Deion Walker was a year ago.
Yeah. Number one thing was maybe we have to consider maybe that was a thinly veiled shot by Stoops to Rogers, right? See
Yeah,
that big guy, how he moves. And I think if you wanted to criticize Rogers, it was a lot of, he didn't really,
who's stiff.
well, he never he had a hard time resetting line of scrimmage.
Mhm.
Not saying he was a bad player. It was just, he was a different type of. Nose. So that so I did find that interesting, but it's easy to get enamored with that size, man. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a legit. I mean, I'm 6'2" and he towers over me. I mean, he's legit pushing 6'6" in my opinion.
It's the thing, look at where it goes back to what Brugler said after watching Deion Walker, where it's like they got one of those guys. Well,
Yeah.
they just got another one, like
Yeah, if it we heard White tell us today, like he feels really good about Nose. They just got 3 guys that they really like with Hayes, Dinkins,
Mhm.
and him. So that gives you options. Number one, with Silver, he just the ceiling's so high, right? I mean, if
Yes.
it hits, it hits. I mean, when you dig into him, like the thing about him as a high school recruit is he was more expected to be kind of a 3-4 defensive end. Be around 280. Basketball background, has real good get off, positional speed, athleticism, all of that stuff. And he just gained a bunch of weight. So if he has that, if he still has some of that and play at that weight, it just gives you 2 guys. And Deion talked today about how a big focus point is, that you're a dude now. You need to like dominate and make teams double you.
Mhm.
If you do that, it's going to open up playmaking opportunities for your other players. So you just need to dominate, and we're going to move you around and let you dominate a lot. Like Deion said, he's learning the field in position. And last year he played boundary tackle and nose. So they are going to move that number 0 around. He's going to play all over the place. And for Keyshawn, if he can, just seeing those 2 together, though, Nick, if they're both able to play, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Changes everything. From a run fit standpoint, they're just going to be hard to move. If they're able to create organic pressure as rushers together, it's so much length. And Kentucky's just nothing. They could be nothing but length out there.
Right.
Especially if you got a guy like J.Q. Hardaway at cornerback.
Mhm.
It's just going to be it could be hard. And that allows them to just comfortably play zone and not have to worry, because they're going to be able to stuff the run, and they're able to pass rush it all. Teams are just going to have a hard time getting vertical, and it's going to be a lot of dink and dunk. So for him, like, he could be he's a wild card, but he could be the whole thing that unlocks and allows them to get to a certain level. Like last year, SP Plus had them like a top 10 defense. I don't know, like watching the games, I didn't feel like they were top 10 defense. I felt they were legit top 20 good, make a case top 15 good. But with him, if he's able to do some stuff that a guy of his pedigree could do with, playing with a Deion Walker, I think they could approach top 10 good. And if you got a top 10 defense, I mean,
Yeah.
when you have an offense that's, much improved, you got a chance for some special things. So he's really like, when we go to a practice and people look at the team when they have the open scrimmage,
Mhm.
that's going to be a guy to really get eyes on and see what he can do.
It's exciting because I was just expecting so very little, and to hear off the top,
Yeah.
like we
You're
didn't
expecting more of like a Darian Henry Young year last year, where it's just
Mhm.
getting settled, acclimated, and see
And then
if in
there's
year 2 if he can make a jump.
yeah, maybe one play, but no,
Yeah.
it's exceeded expectations so far. But I'm loving. We've got some hot. We got people arguing in the chat, Luckett, which means we're doing something right.
There we
Um,
go.
I do appreciate John. He had some tech critiques, but to big shout out to Steven, who's still producing while on the road to Nashville. So the show's a little bit different. It's a chaotic time of year. So we're just happy to give you all a show, give you some takes. I love it. Jerry's got the fun hot take that if you subtract the 7 wins against Vanderbilt, Stoops is only 25 and 50 in SEC games. Why is that acceptable? And I love that is on the heels of the Athletic ranking the top 25 coaches in college football, and he's in the top 20. And I mean, you be the judge, Jerry. I mean, if he's one of the top 20 coaches in all of college football, but that's not acceptable enough for you. The reason why that's a big deal, like it, is first off, you can't just take away 7 wins and just say because you discount that opponent. That's not fair. But secondly, we had this conversation previously about Oklahoma and Texas joining. We have to recalibrate our brains to what success is going to mean. And Stoops being a top 20 coach, right? 8 of the top 25 were in the SEC. 8 of the top 25 head coaches are in the SEC. You're going to have to play another SEC game a year. You're going to be playing potentially, these traditional powers, Texas. It's just in a different ballpark. And Stoops at least has Kentucky competing. And that's something you can't always say about this program throughout its history, is that they are competitive, that they have a puncher's chance every time they take the field every single Saturday.
Every conference has a cellar dweller. Just about every team outside of the national title contenders, if you want to play the if game, you could come up with a bad record.
Yep.
So
yeah,
you get 12 games every year.
You're a Lane Kiffin fan. You can nitpick his conference record, how they finished this year,
Let's not forget their non-conference Power 5 record over the last 5 years. Only losses to Iowa.
Yep.
They played plenty of non-conference power teams with winning records, and they've won these games. I think a lot of times, if you I say scoreboard math a lot, right? Like that's a big term I use. But if you want to play like record math, right? I mean, if you want to do that, we can nitpick all day.
Yeah.
But we need to realize what this job is, what this conference is, what the historical place is for Kentucky. They're punching above, by most measures, they're punching above their weight class right now.
Yeah, Kentucky had a winning record last year, and we're disappointed. I mean, that should tell you enough.
Let's enjoy the ride here a little bit. Yeah. There's stuff we can definitely criticize on, but I don't think a SEC record outside of Vanderbilt is one of them. Now, do they need to beat Tennessee more? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they're also doing some good
won 3 out of 5 against Florida.
They also have a dominant record against South Carolina, Missouri over the last whatever wins.
The one stat that UK media relations uses a lot.
Again, Jerry, we know losing we know that wasn't acceptable last year. It needs to be Tennessee.
But
yes,
Stoops is 600 as a coach. He's 60% winning percentage since the middle of 2016. 7 years of 60% winning percentage is just not anything we're accustomed to. You've had small stretches, maybe 3 or 4 years at a time. It's double it. So Kentucky's in a good spot right now. We've got almost 100 people watching live. Conference championship Thursday, caring about Kentucky football. Like, it matters a lot more than it's ever mattered in my lifetime.
Also, do not let opposing fans set your standards here. Right? We hear Louisville fans and Tennessee fans and Louisville media and Tennessee media a lot. Tell Kentucky and tell people who will listen that what they're doing is not it's not noteworthy. It's not
doesn't matter. It's not good enough. Play somebody on the road in the first game of the season.
Do not let them set the standard. Kentucky knows what they're doing. They've taken a bunch of ass whoopings in this league over the years. They know how to schedule and they know what success is. Kentucky fans know what success is.
Mm-hmm.
Losing that game to Vanderbilt was unacceptable. Everyone knows that.
Yep. You blew it on the road at Ole Miss. You blew it.
Performing how you did at Tennessee is unacceptable, but they've made the changes to try to prevent that from happening again.
Yep.
Stoops has proven he's willing to roll the dice and get flexible. So you have to give him credit for that. There's stuff they need to do better, but Kentucky's, they're doing the right thing. I know people try to scoff at the schedule or whatever, but I don't know what people, what do you want them to do? You want to play? Is everybody happy if they go play Virginia Tech, home and home, get another ACC win? Is that what we? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
What more is that gonna give them? Do what you.
It would be cool to go to Lane Stadium though, Luckett. I mean,
the goal, think about the season goal for Kentucky. The goal is to beat Louisville, to go 500 or better in the SEC, and to get the best bowl possible. Playing Purdue, why do they need to play another? I don't understand.
Opening the season at Lucas Oil Stadium against Purdue, it'd be fun road trip for some people. But what does it accomplish?
To me, the season's all about winning as many SEC games possible and beating Louisville, and then using those non-conference games as to tweak or to reset or to get healthy during the season.
Yep.
If they're gonna like, if that's the format, take advantage of that. And also, like, we act like everyone else is playing, multiple non-conference opponents in the SEC. Most teams have the same scheduling philosophy as Kentucky.
Yeah.
It's not Kentucky's fault that Louisville's stunk the last 4 years.
Yeah, they've been really bad. It's like Georgia playing Georgia Tech. It's not their fault. Georgia Tech's
when you see
awful.
people say, shame for Kentucky scheduling 2 MAC schools, like, this is just, like, they know what they're doing. It's not nothing shameful about it. They play the toughest league, and it's also why, like, I think it's going to be considered when they go 9 that Louisville game might get dropped. Just because they got to do what's best for them, and I think what's best for them is, win as many SEC games as possible first and then beat Louisville. But if you got to play 9, depending on how the postseason is structured, it might not make a lot of sense to play Louisville anymore.
Well, it's fun. I'm glad we got people mixing it up on the YouTube page during our show, brought to you by Monticello Bank, NBCBank.com. But we do need to get out of here. Next week, we've been going Thursday at noon. I doubt we're going to go Thursday at noon on opening day of NCAA tournament. So we'll likely get scheduled, likely shake things up a little bit next week. Check us out, Roush KSR at Adam Luckett KSR on Twitter for updates on all that. But also, shameless plug, Luckett, KSR Plus. People should be on there. It's fun.
Yep. Got some stuff on Isaiah Cummings and J.Q. Hardaway this week.
Some good spring practice sort of scoop on the board as well.
Yeah. Dug deeper into kind of everything. Yeah, we got some good stuff on the board. Going to have a lot of draft stuff coming up, too. We're going to really kind of lean into that. And so if you're into that at all, definitely check us out. Only $10 until August.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll regret it. You'll enjoy some of the content we got going on.
And we've enjoyed hanging out with you today on 11 Personnel. For Adam Luckett, I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Crow Green.